So you speak about when incarcerated, how art was a mean of psychologically coping with imprisonment and providing yourself as becoming an entrepreneur. So how has art shown up as voice in your experience with the legal system?
In my personal experience with the legal system, I've seen it show up in my life in a way where it helped me to deal with, like I said, because once I got introduced to the art, I was already in prison. So for me, it was more just like coping, managing, getting out. But how I've seen it for other folks, I've seen it in these advocacy spaces where we are able to reach out to people who are legal professionals to educate them. I've also seen it materialize through programs that we run with like organizations like the Center for Court Innovation, who work with young people in a diversion way where folks can circumvent prison time by going to mandated programs, and we work directly with these organizations to help them enhance their artistic programming. And we do that because we don't want these mandated programs to just be something that's locking up people's time and not giving them anything to leave with. You know, it's like a lot of programs folks are mandated to. They do their hour there and they leave getting nothing. And we want to ensure that folks, you know, the time that they have to be there, that they can get some tools that can help them to navigate the different social obligations they have.
Thank you for sharing. And so while speaking about all of this, how has art facilitated or unmuted voices? So you speak a lot about how it's impacted you and how it's helped your voice formulate and empower other communities of people. So how has that unmuted voices around you?
I've seen art unmute voices in ways where even like something I've shared with you, going to the Nude Expo and seeing like people use their art to tell us about something that they would never have been able to tell us about in a different way. Also being able to communicate it to people in a way where, you know, they might not have seen the importance or the relevancy there, you know. But I think in those ways I've also seen the unmuting happening when you just give people space to talk. You know, I mentioned Spoon Jackson, who's a person who's incarcerated right now in California. Also Kenneth Reams. These are people that I've worked with who are in prison doing life without parole. You know, and they might quite possibly, you know, I pray that they are able to come home, but they may not ever come home. And if it wasn't for the arts, you know, their writing, their art, their poetry, you know, their voice would be muted in that place. You know, so we are able to hear from them and to learn from them because of their artistry. Right, and just a lot of that, you know, just seeing the arts be a way for people to speak up, you know, and also for us to listen, you know. So maybe the unmuting is not always that you didn't have a voice, but maybe it was I wasn't listening. So maybe you were muted to me because I wasn't listening, and it's not so much that I wasn't talking loud enough. You wasn't talking loud enough, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you think that if art is experiential, do you think that that it is possible, that art can be developing empathy in areas where people cannot otherwise identify with the struggles of being incarcerated and or impacted by incarceration?
Yeah, I think that absolutely, and I think it is the case for anything. You know, first off, law. One of the things that I found, and I found this working at Columbia University and being in a place where everything is so, things are hierarchical. Certain professions are more considered to be, you know, better professions, right? You know, we know what lawyers do, we know what doctors do, you know, what psychologists might go do, or social workers, but when it comes to artists, it's very much like an open, and it's not as clear. And but one of the things that's always left out of that in those spaces is the fact that the arts is what is always the tool that is used to change people's attitude about something. So while we may implement laws and we may change policies, those things don't change public attitudes. Those don't change social misconceptions about people, right? So it is the arts. It is always the arts to help us to understand. Because when you talk about empathy, you talk about relating. Like, I gotta connect with something in me to something in you, right? And it takes some sort of, it takes, and a story, that's art, storytelling. For me to be able to tell you a story about me and you resonate with it, I just use the form of art to help you to, gain some empathy. So I really don't think there's any other tool to help us to understand people that we don't live directly with or are exposed to, and that's why we have entertainment. That's why we read. That's why we do all of these different creative things cross culture. We appreciate people's art and stuff because it gives us insight into something we didn't know.
So as you speak on that, how would you like to see art programs develop in system-impacted communities? And how do you see, as being participants in those communities, individuals, children and victims, legislators, etc.?
What I would like to see more is the arts not just used as a supplemental instrument. It's not just to decorate the space. And I also want to see the arts in programming evolve past. I also want to see the arts in spaces evolve past just being a means for expression for people. Like, as we spoke about, we use the arts as a tool. And we want to see people use the arts and programs, use the arts more. So not just letting people express themselves, but give folks some tools. Use these artistic sessions to build about some social issues that folks might be having. Use the arts to create some trainings that may help people navigate conversations that they can't, hard conversations, right? What if we had performing arts in reentry programs that help people to talk to their supervisor, and we did skits where people had to talk to rough supervisors? So many people wouldn't lose their job because they would learn how to navigate, right? So the arts can be so much more in these spaces. And I would like us to acknowledge it more in the work that's done. Even in the courtroom, presentation slides, how you present the witness, how you present the evidence. All of that goes into those are visuals, and that plays on people. So I would like to see in these spaces the acknowledging the power of the arts and using it more intentionally, and not just limiting the arts to just being a means of expression, because it is a means of expression, but it's so much more than that.